Having strong and powerful wrists should not just be reserved for people who want to do extreme things like handstands, planches, or one-arm lifts. As someone who used to have wrists so weak that I'd get ganglion cysts by just doing push-ups and then feel the pain every time I want to get out of bed or out of a chair using my hands, I realized that it's very important to take care of your wrists, especially as you grow older. So, if you follow along this routine consistently, at least 3 to 4 times a week, you're guaranteed to have wrists so strong that it's no problem to do inverted wrist diamond push-ups like this and not feel anything at all bothering you in your wrists. Okay, let's begin. There's 3 phases to this to cause several adaptations. We'll start as we're talking about it. The first phase is movement by will. So we're not using any external resistance. We're going to flex the wrist all the way forward, extend backwards, and radial deviation and ulnar deviation. So to summarize, we're doing front, back, side to side, twist all the way and then some, twist all the way and then some. And as you do this with me, make sure you're doing it with open palms as well as closed fists. And every few rounds that you're doing these 6 basic movements, flexion, extension, deviations, and supination and pronation, make sure to do the fluid version. So the fluid version is just having fun with your wrists and also include some fingers. And take your time, no rush on this. I usually like to set a timer for 10 minutes, maybe sometimes less if I'm in a hurry, but usually not less than 5 minutes. Not for the phase 1 though, for the whole practice, so don't worry, it's not going to be 5 minutes of just doing this. So we'll do a little bit more, make sure to play with the fingers, alternate between fluid as well as the mechanical 6 motions we talked about. And now that I'm kind of warm, I've caused the first adaptation I want, which is increased blood flow to the joint. It's a very short-term or very quick adaptation. I want to work on kind of familiarizing myself with possible ranges of motion that the wrist might end up in. So if you're doing a handstand and say you're about to fall forward, you're going to be in extreme flexion or extreme extension, and maybe if you're doing a planche and you fall forward, you're going to be in extreme, if you're turning your wrists out, in extreme radial deviation. So we're going to expose the wrist to those. However, we're going to expose the wrist to those movements using extremely light load. So the floor is helping us, but I'm not putting almost any weight on the floor. It's like my wrists are made of glass and I'm exposing them to these ranges of motion. So you can do this while kneeling down, you can do this while cross-legged or seated. Most of my weight is in my lower body and I'm just exposing my wrists to all of these ranges of movement. Very intuitive. You don't have to do exactly what I'm doing. Move a little bit away so you can see me. And also include the top of the hand as well. So here we're increasing our flexibility without providing any incentive at all for any of the muscles to tense up. Roll the wrists or roll the hands on the ground, and make sure from time to time, if you're paying attention to this video, I appreciate this a lot, but also make sure from time to time to pay attention to your hands. They're very important and they help you do so many cool things. So it's nice to actually look at them and appreciate them more deeply. Now here also in this phase, I like to include finger stretches. So I'll pick 1 or 2 finger combinations. I'll just stretch this way. So I can do maybe like this, any combination you want. And also we'll do 1 finger at a time and maybe also include the thumbs. And again, it may look like I'm doing these quickly, but I'm not putting a lot of load yet. In the next phase, we'll put loads. So in the next phase, we're looking for also two different adaptations, which will be increase of bone density. So we can actually put heavy loads on our hands, or as heavy as we can for that day. And also increasing the muscle mass in that region. So we're gonna stimulate some actual muscle force. Okay, let's move on to the next phase. I think we're ready. So here we're gonna do exactly the same minus the finger stretches, but with adding load. So adding load may be as simple as just leaning a bit to feel some weight. It may be as advanced as lifting the knees to have more weight. It may be as advanced as lifting the knees and one leg and leaning more forward. Or it may be as advanced as later on maybe climbing on the wall or getting into an arm balance like a crow. For today, we're gonna keep it simple. And if you're doing this as a warm-up for an arm balancing practice, like learning to handstand or to crow, then I'm going to be adding a lot of videos on that too, a lot of follow-alongs. So as you're adding weight, see if you can also use your wrist muscles. So how do I do that? I'm going to, with my legs, push myself forward, feel the weight on my wrists, and now with my wrists, push myself back. And now with my legs, I push myself forward. I can use my legs to push myself back. We're not going to use this. Instead, we're going to, with our fingers and wrists, push ourselves back. Now all I have to do is the same thing, but changing the orientation of my fingers. So forward and back. Maybe even a grip like this one. And maybe even the tops of the hand. And if you're following along with this, and you feel that you want to go back to phase one, feel free to do so. How I do my own practice is I will set a timer and I will cycle between the phases. So phase one, phase two, and maybe for phase three, I want to add a small wall climb. I will just go here and just climb on the wall and have more weight in my hands. Maybe do arms, single hands, or maybe even lean forward just a little bit and balance into a handstand and come back. If you have a temptation to get bored and start cutting things short, then use this video to follow along. This way it'll force you to actually practice for several minutes without having to be like, okay, phase one, phase two, phase three, I'm done, right? Okay, by now your wrist should be feeling warm, and believe it or not, that's pretty much all you need to do to condition your wrists, as long as you're consistent and doing it often. And if you're using this as a warm-up to do some handstands, go to my next video where I'll do a follow-along handstand workout.